Ain't nothing peculiar about the way that I was raised, and my arm is on the way.
That's another reason that Dr. Osborne says he altered his findings. That meeting with Dr. Adams takes place prior to his meeting with the police. So he already knew that, supposedly knew that. Guy DeAndrea contacts the police and he says, "Where is Dr. Adams' report? I don't have it." They said, "We don't have one either." So he contacts the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner's office tells him it doesn't exist. And he said, "What do you mean it doesn't exist? The report doesn't exist." So that paragraph in that autopsy report is fraudulent. I contacted Dr. Adams, and Dr. Adams told me that I know nothing at all about that case.
Wow.
She said, if there isn't any report and there isn't any invoice, occurred January 26, 2011. The first thing I did was call the medical examiner's office in Philadelphia, and I asked the director, Dr. Samuel Galino, if I could interview Dr. Osborne, who performed the autopsy. And Dr. Galino refused. He said, "No, you can't interview." I contacted an individual that I knew, Dr. Wayne Ross, who was a neuroforensic pathologist. I contacted him and I asked him to take a look at, the reports. So Dr. Ross did, and he gave me a report that, in his opinion, this was a homicide.
And that was based on his evaluation of the autopsy records that you had?
Yes, the autopsy records and the photographs and the scene photographs. With that, I contacted Dr. Galino again, asking permission to interview Dr. Osborne. And Dr. Galino said, well, since Dr. Ross and Dr. Osborne are medical professionals, he would permit a conference call. We had a conference call, and the conference call took place in the Dauphin County Coroner's office. Dr. Ross interviewed Dr. Osborne. Dr. Ross asked him questions, and when Dr. Ross was finished, then I began questioning Dr. Osborne. And my last question to him was, since there was no medical reason for you to change your opinion, why did you change your medical opinion from homicide to suicide?
And just for everybody to understand, initially, Dr. Osborne said, listen, this is a homicide. And then later, after a closed-door meeting, that changed. So go ahead.
Dr. Osborne said, well, the police told me that there wasn't anybody in the apartment, that no one could get into the apartment, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, he said, I changed it at the insistence of the police from homicide to suicide. And I said to Dr. Osborne, did any of the police have a degree in pathology? No. You didn't have any medical reason for changing your opinion. You just changed it because they said no one was in the apartment. With that, the conversation ended.
And I remember reading about that. And it's really something for a medical examiner to go against the scientific evidence that they're seeing, the pathological evidence, the reasons medically they find somebody had been killed at another's hand, for them to change it, all because it was put forth that there wasn't anybody in the room. It's not congruent, even though we know autopsies and those results consider the totality of the situation. But he never really examined if somebody wasn't there when she was there, and all the medical evidence pointed to someone being there and committing a homicide. So it's incongruent.
Through this whole thing, I had befriended an individual, Guy DeAndrea, who was an assistant district attorney in the homicide prosecution unit. And I asked Guy to take a look at the case. Guy DeAndrea said that he found the case in a closet covered with some Christmas decorations, and it didn't have a file number on it. So he said he spent the next 2 days just organizing the file. And he said one of the things that he noticed was missing was in the autopsy report, there's a paragraph which states that the spinal cord specimen was examined by Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams. She said in that paragraph, the wound to that spinal cord was not significant enough, and the victim could have continued to harm herself. That's another reason that Dr. Osborne says he altered his findings. That meeting with Dr. Adams takes place prior to his meeting with the police. So he already knew that, supposedly knew that. Guy DeAndrea contacts the police and he says, where is Dr. Adams' report? I don't have it. They said, we don't have one either. So he contacts the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner's office tells him it doesn't exist. And he said, what do you mean it doesn't exist? The report doesn't exist. So that paragraph in that autopsy report is fraudulent. I contacted Dr. Adams, and Dr. Adams told me that I know nothing at all about that case.
Wow.
She said, if there isn't any report and there isn't any invoice.
Miller, I don't believe it for 1 second. I just literally don't believe it. And the reason I don't believe it is because it's too convenient and too tied up and too literally, specifically, like here we have her on tape. She called in. Did y'all hear the 911 call? We all know. I literally, I looked up some apps online. There are apps that change your voice. Wasn't Trump saying that to somebody one day, that they had an app and let's look up the phone number and see who really called? I mean, there's texting apps where you can't even trace them back. And the 911 operator, they weren't able to locate the cell phone. That's because it didn't come from her cell phone. It came from another cell phone using an app or a texting thing or a burner phone. And it's an AI thing. This is the problem. That young woman did not do what they're saying she did, period. There was another woman that helped her over off the planet. Okay. So this would technically be murder and not at her own hand. So I don't believe for 1 minute what they're saying, and you're not going to change my mind. It's way too convenient that this young woman has herself on video buying a gun. She goes and she Googles where to do this. She lives in the area, so she definitely knows the parks, period. And she Googles, and then she's found in the water because water decomposes everything. Hello. So she couldn't just do it like on the ground. She had to do it in the water, and then the gun had to be found in the water. And then it's all neatly wrapped up, and her husband and the girlfriend or mistress or bitch ass, pick me woman, literally, whose husband drowned in a pool. See the connection? Drowned in a pool over here. Yes, he was a paraplegic, quadriplegic. So who let him go over there swimming by himself? Said nobody ever, okay? Said no one. No one. Suddenly he's passed away, dead, and now this young woman is in the lake, right? Since the girlfriend, mistress, person, whatever kind of person she is, since that person decided to be out of town, how convenient, like she's gonna do this to herself, so everybody leaves town. Okay, there's a youngish, kind of brunette with freckled haired woman, but young, 23, 24, and this is the person that helped commit this crime. I don't know who that is. I don't know how she's connected to the other two, if she's the child of one of the other two, but that's exactly what happened. Somebody helped this person commit the crime. That's what I'm feeling.
Ain't nothing